Yes, good Saturday afternoon, everybody. This is Eddie Huff. This is Fresh Black Coffee. And we have our usual lineup of myself and Dave Van Risingham. We have a special guest today in the house, and that is the former state senator from Oklahoma, Mike Mazzei, and very possibly the next governor of the state of
That's
Oklahoma. Right. And Mike's here to talk to us about that today. Mm-hmm. And but before we do that, let's just talk in general with Mike and get some expert opinion, see, because here's why. I mean, we've got a twofer today, mm-hmm. political and financial. Mm-hmm. Mike is a financial expert.
Indeed I am, Eddie.
Yes, there you go. There you go. No, seriously though, Mike is a financial services. What is your title exactly?
Well, I'm a certified financial planner, mm-hmm. And I'm one of the few folks in the industry, Eddie, that have a master planner advanced studies designation because I have a master's degree in financial planning.
Okay, well, see, so there you go. So he knows his stuff. So Mike, let's get right into this. Mm-hmm. The stock market had a precipitous fall mm-hmm. this week. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like every day I kept looking and now me having been involved in this for a number of years now, back to 87. So it doesn't bother me. In fact, I get kind of excited.
Prices get cheaper, and
exactly.
Got to figure out when the right time is to buy.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Now, this is something that might be good for us to discuss because one theory is to buy a little bit as you go down. Because you can't time it exactly. Somebody probably can, but I can't. Let's put it that way.
Bottoms are.
Exactly. So I've been buying a little bit every time it drops 1,000 points or so. You buy a little more, you buy a little more, buy a little more,
and a little short-term dollar cost averaging, we call it.
Right. Exactly. But so give us kind of a synopsis and your idea of why we're having this fall.
Well, the stock market's going through a 10 to 15% correction. Mm-hmm. And during this latest bull market that started at the end of 2022, we've had a nice run up in prices and, wealth creation for American investors. And we're due for a 10 to 15% correction. Part of this is an emotional reaction created by the fear of the tariff battles that our president has initiated to reset the playing field because we've been taken advantage of for far too long.
You remember the hearings after 9/11? The commission said they were at war with us, but we were not at war with them. Isn't that true on the tariff scene? Everybody's been hit nuts with tariffs, but we haven't rejoined them.
We've been allowing for decades other countries to take advantage of our great system of free market capitalism and the buying power of the American consumer. Mm-hmm. So the easy way to look at it, just in broad economic terms, I heard this from one of my favorite economists just this past week. If you take all the countries, Dave, mm-hmm. that send us, their goods, mm-hmm. we only on average charge them about 2% to have access to the American economy. Mm. But all those other countries combined, they charge us about 15% for us to have access to their economies and their consumers.
Trump's been talking about this, 80% on a Harley, 100% on a Cadillac. But you're saying average all goods about 15%.
Yeah.
Okay.
put everything together.
Mhm.
And what people seem to forget is in 2018, when President Trump said, we've got to get some better deals with Mexico and Canada and everybody else, we're going to initiate some tariffs. The market had an emotional reaction and prices went down for a little bit. But remember that once the tax cuts by President Trump got in place, and once there were less regulations, and once there was lower energy prices, the economy boomed. And of course, we had super wage growth across all demographics, and the market took off, and things were rocking and rolling in 2019 up until we hit the pandemic. So more than likely, that's what's going to happen again, and the president will lead us towards better, more fair trade deals once our trading partners out there go, okay, it's time to negotiate, and we need them. I'm sorry, they need us a lot more than we need them.
Yeah, that's what it's so refreshing to hear someone who actually is in that industry and has an understanding to say that, because my suspicion is there's a lot of naysayers out there. And I suspect a lot of it is not really dealing with true economics. It's dealing more with politics. They just don't like Trump, and they're trying to use this against him and preaching doom and gloom about this. And so it's really refreshing to hear someone specifically from the financial area and investment area speak positively, because that's what I feel. And as I said, if we don't panic, if we will stay the course and just keep investing a little bit here and there as it goes down, when it rebounds, and it will, at some point it has to, because the people who are maybe doing this on purpose, selling, at some point, they're not going to have anything left to sell. Their greed is going to come back on them, and they're going to say, well, maybe I've sold too much. Now it's time to buy. And once they start buying again, that's when everything takes off like a rocket ship. So no, I'm really glad to it really makes me feel good to hear that. So yeah, a little bit of your background. You came here originally to attend Oral Roberts University.
1983.
Where from?
ORU. At the time, my dad was stationed at Scott Air Force Base, just east of St. Louis. So our family was residing in Southern Illinois.
So you two are both brats.
Yeah, we're
military
both military brats.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, the best people in the world.
That's all right.
It's a special breed.
Yeah.
Drop us anywhere and we'll make a friend.
Exactly.
After moving all over.
Yeah, you get good at it, Mike, don't you?
You have to.
Yeah. Yeah, except Eddie was at Dodd schools all over Europe too, right?
Yeah, I was at a DOD school in South Korea for a little while.
Okay.
See, there you go.
There you go.
He covered Asia, I covered Europe.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. The white guys in Asia and the black guys in
He
Europe.
wore later hose. What did you wear?
Hopefully not a sarong.
I just wore good old American clothes to high school in South Korea.
Oh yeah.
But a big parka because it was freezing.
Oh yeah.
Those southern Siberian winds.
Yes.
I had walked to school every day because it wasn't too far from our house.
I think that's
wore a big parka.
I think that's what made the Korean War, when we got involved, one of the roughest.
Oh yeah, my dad was there. I mean, we grew up central Minnesota. He said, "I've never felt cold like Korea."
Yeah, I can imagine. Again, it makes you think and appreciate what those who came before us went through and put up with, the Argonne forest there in France, and then the Korean conflict, and of course our own Valley Forge, and some of those, you think about
true American heroes.
Yes. So you came here, you went to Oral Roberts for 2 years, and then you were telling me earlier you answered the call of a senator. Was it a senator or a congressman?
United States Senator Gordon Humphrey from New Hampshire.
Right. And
ironically.
what did he, and this was in the middle of your college education at ORU, after your sophomore year.
Back in the 80s, the Reagan Revolution, the pro-life fight was, really pushing changes, and Senator Humphrey wanted a pro-life task force built within his office of the U.S. Senate, and they needed a staff assistant to handle correspondence and errands. And my most important job, though, Eddie, for Senator Humphrey was going to this special location in Washington, D.C. to pick up his chocolate yoo-hoos.
For those of you who don't know, it's a drink. It's a chocolate juice.
I did that for 7 months in the middle of my college experience.
And then you decided to stay up there, and you attended George Mason.
That's where I got my government affairs, government and politics bachelor's degree.
And then after that, then you ended up getting a master's in.
That was much later already when I was in the financial.
So when you first
planning profession.
So you had started in the financial planning profession with a government.
No. Well,
with your major, it wasn't a finance major that you had when you entered into the financial services market.
I always kind of wanted to develop some sort of career in both business and public service. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, when I moved back to Tulsa, because all my wonderful friends were back here, and I just fell in love with Tulsa and Oklahoma, I came back here in 1988 and was fortunate to get a job with a local small independent investment company. And that began my financial planning career. Pretty soon after that, I attended the College for Financial Planning to go through the program to become a board certified financial planner.
I see. Now, when in all this
was not, I got certified in 1994.
Okay. And in all of this time, what period was it where you met your bride?
Well, that was a wonderful season of life, and I talked her into a date in March of 1989, and we got married in June of 1990. Mm-hmm. She didn't like me to talk about this too much, but she was the ORU homecoming queen.
Hey, done good. Hey, I wanted to ask.
Yes, Dave.
I think you and Matt Pinnell have a few things in common. Both an ORU alum.
Right.
Now, his degree is in marketing and that.
Okay.
But or at least that's how he explained it to me. Maybe I'm glossing over. But you're probably one of your biggest feats of marketing after getting the homecoming queen to marry you, getting your family to relocate here, because you're an Oklahoman by choice.
Yes.
And your dad, after a career in military, decided he would settle here, right?
Well, first I got my brother to move here, and it was me and a good opportunity, actually, with one of Oklahoma's best and one of America's best engineering companies, Wallace Engineering.
Oh, yeah.
So my brother and sister-in-law move here, and we have 5 kids, and my brother has 5 kids, and
that'll do it.
In there, well, where's dad, going to move to?
Yep.
So my dad moves out here eventually as well. And so we have lots of Mazzeis in Tulsa, and my nieces, some of my kids went to ORU, and my brother's nieces are actually runners right now at ORU.
Okay.
Oh, I've got to throw this in real quickly because this is a little inside. I met his dad before I actually met him. I used to live in his Senate district, right? Yeah. And he came knocking. I wasn't there, and my wife told me, "Oh, the nicest guy came tonight. You missed him, and he's running for the Oklahoma State Senate." And some guy, Mazzei, you couldn't pronounce the name correctly, but anyway. And then I met your dad. That's how that whole started. But one thing that I wanted to discuss was the fact that you have built a name in the Oklahoma state house and being the kind of the fiscal hawk and fiscal conservative. In fact, I want to throw out here, we have a grocery tax, what would you call it?
Exemption. Really.
Exemption. Now we've gotten rid of our state grocery tax statewide. The cities, for some reason, still have it going on, but statewide, it's gone. And I want everybody to know this is the gentleman you can thank for that, Mike Mazzei. Mike Mazzei's been on a quest to end the grocery tax for many years.
Well, we've had a long journey when it comes to tax relief for the people of Oklahoma. When I got into the Oklahoma Senate, the state income tax was in the 6% range. And back then we still had an estate tax and all sorts of, competitive disadvantages versus other states. And they were, our shoppers were fleeing to Texas and Missouri and Arkansas for back to school supplies and needs, for clothes for kids and, all that stuff. So over the course of time, when I was chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, we eventually lowered through bills that I authored the reduction in the state income tax to 5.25%. We eliminated the Oklahoma death tax, the estate. There is no Oklahoma estate tax. We launched the back to school sales tax holiday. We basically whittled down to almost nothing the business franchise tax. After I left, they got rid of it completely, which was great. So we've had lots and lots of tax relief for the Oklahoma consumers. Recently, I wasn't in the Senate, but recently the Oklahoma legislature and Governor Stitt eliminated the sales tax on groceries.
Right. But it was, you were the progenitor of it. You're the one who got us on that mission, because I remember I remember years ago. I mean, we're talking 10, 15 years ago, you were talking about it. And
all these other states are charging consumers for groceries. Why would Oklahoma want to keep doing that?
I still have a T-shirt from John Sullivan when he was state rep. Say no to grocery tax. That's from like 95.
Oh, really?
So a lot of people. You're part of a brigade that over decades has been fighting this fight.
Yeah. Well, my friends like Senator Dave Rader, Representative Chris Banning, here locally, they're the ones that actually pushed through the elimination of the state grocery tax. I was not at the Capitol.
So then you term limited out.
2016 was my last year in the Oklahoma Senate.
Right. And you went to work for this governor of ours.
Yeah. A few years later, I end up back at the Capitol as Governor Stitt's first Secretary of Finance, basically.
And so what was that like? I mean, can you tell us what you were involved in with Governor Stitt in your role as Secretary of Finance?
Well, as the finance guy for Governor Stitt, we orchestrated a budget strategy that our friends in the Senate and the House helped us with for I should say, the first time in the history of Oklahoma, we put extra money in the state savings accounts. Our system has some automatic deposits that are supposed to happen in what's called the State Rainy Day Fund. But during my time in the legislature, we launched an additional savings bucket called the Revenue Stabilization Fund. And for the first time in Oklahoma history, as I said, this budget of the governor's in 2019, we put $200 million in the Revenue Stabilization Fund So that lifted us to $1 billion in savings for the first time in Oklahoma history.
Which is about 10% of our budget, right? Roughly.
Yeah. The governor and I worked on, a plan where we really need to get states' reserves into the $2.5 billion range at the time when you looked at what the overall state budget and monthly expenses were. The first goal, Dave, was to get to that $1 billion. And fortunately, we had done that because we needed every penny to get through the budget year implications when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then to Governor Stitt's credit and the members of the legislature, once the economy took off and got roaring again, they replenished it and now have built the state savings accounts to even higher levels around, $4 billion.
Wow. That's interesting. That's amazing. That's really good. That's really good. And so then you, after a couple of years doing that, then you went back to your practice.
Yeah. Came home and, focused still on the business.
Helping.
We got involved with public policy organization called the Committee for Oklahoma Prosperity.
I remember that.
And that kept me engaged in, important public policy issues and aware of what wasn't getting done in the education arena, what still wasn't getting done in dealing with our tax code.
I recall there are a couple other lawmakers signed up for that with you. Weren't there like 3 of you that started it?
Well, there was a whole collaboration.
Okay.
Senator Dave Rader, my state senator, was very much involved in the launch of that. And fortunately, as it grew and grew, Dave, we started having quarterly public policy breakfast forums. And my state rep, Mark Tedford, got involved as well. And so we had this nice group collaborating on very important public policy issues, and we'd have successful small business owners attend these events along with several local state legislators.
Okay. I got a question, if I could. Let's play Magic Wand time.
Okay.
Governor Mike Mazzei.
Lord willing.
Yeah. If you could just wave your wand and see some changes, give me 3 or 4 things you'd like to see change in how government in Oklahoma does things.
Let's because that was going to be my next thing.
Yeah.
Because we haven't mentioned this yet, Mike is now officially running to be the next governor of the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I did mention it?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. But anyway, I
we go.
Take it a little step, because the other evening he had a coming out. I would call it kind of a gala
kickoff
event. Yeah, it was quite an event, I have to say. A lot of people,
a lot of fun. 250 people.
Yeah,
some great participation and help from our friends like Congressman Josh Burkeen came and announced his public endorsement, and that was pretty exciting. And we had an amazing testimonial from my good friend and very successful businessman, Sean Copeland, the CEO of Regent Bank, and
pastor.
Great event. My
Asbury.
pastor for 20 plus years, Tom Harrison, is one of our honorary co-chairs, and he kicked off the evening with some comments, but more importantly, prayer.
Right. What really impressed me, though, I have to say, the reason I wanted to mention this is because I was just kind of impressed.
When do I get the magic wand, Eddie?
Dave's got the magic wand.
Okay.
No, what I was impressed by was the diversity in the crowd that night.
Yeah, that was special.
It really stood out. And I'm not just talking of racial diversity. I'm just speaking diversity in people. I was just, every time I turned around, I saw they were all generally Republicans, but you had moderates, some that you might consider not as moderate, some staunchly conservative. You had the 9/12 people there. You had the Terra people. You had the this, the that, the Tulsa Women, Republican Women's Club. You had a representation, and you had some pretty high up, officials, and you had some pretty low people like myself there. And but no, my wife and I, we really were thinking this is pretty amazing to get that diverse of a group of, because a lot of times these people don't get together.
Some of them don't like each other.
Yeah.
But they like Mike.
But they like Mike. Yeah, but they like Mike. So anyway, I just wanted to say that to me spoke of good things, looking forward. So now, Dave, your magic wand.
Oh, yes. I'm passing it off, metaphysically.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
It's your magic wand, Mike. What are we going to do?
Well, our first priority, Dave, is to tackle this massive issue and problem in that only 20% of our 8th graders can read proficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And
20%. Wow.
This is the latest statistics from the national data, looking at all the states. And it's called the nation's report card. And you work out those numbers, Eddie, and that means 550,000 Oklahoma students are going through the system and they can't read proficiently. Therefore, they're not going to be prepared for a great job and they're not going to be prepared for life. But other states have tackled this problem, and we want to duplicate those successful models, because if we hire or appoint, however we can work it out with the state legislature, a statewide literacy director, which is what they did in the state of Mississippi, and dedicate tens of millions of dollars to the proper assessment at the beginning of the school years of where our kids are in terms of mastery of reading or lack thereof. And we hire reading specialists and we hire tutors, and we get completely rid of this liberal disaster of word-based reading, and we get back to how we all learned, phonics and sounding out words, and get that curriculum and that process back in the schools. We can resurrect or have an emergency reading sufficiency program. When I was in the state Senate and we were finally working on education reform, we were 49th in reading outcomes and Mississippi was 50th.
Yeah, 50.
Well, today, Mississippi's 22 in the nation and we're still 49th. And so we are sounding the alarm bell. It is time to have Trump-like action to do what is necessary to fix this problem.
The only thing I'd say on that, and I don't want to interrupt your magic wand session here, but as a homeschool parent, all 3 of my kids all the way through, first one, SRA Distar phonics, by the time he's ready for kindergarten, he's reading 2nd grade level. Okay. My next kid, phonics didn't work at all. Okay. They're both doing great, but all I want to say is I agree with you. Phonics is better, but just don't have a one size fits all for everybody. That's all I'm saying.
And that's why we need reading specialists, Dave. I also had a family that homeschooled for a while, and my wife, for 4 of the 5 kids, had to focus on phonics.
Yeah.
We had one kid that had an eye convergence problem, and she had to approach things, differently with her to get caught up. So you never in, any type of educational discipline have a one size, fits all for everything. But that's why you have reading specialists that know generally this is the way to go. But if we assess every kid and we put the money into the right type of assessments and the right type of bringing reading specialists into the system, we can have flexibility for those other kids.
Yeah. And the only other thing I say that there's no substitute for the one-on-one. And parents, I have to say, too much have delegated out and think they don't play a role in their kids' education.
Yeah.
We know that the kids that excel well, their parents were always very involved.
Yeah.
Right.
We certainly
But
need parental involvement. But
I don't think you're going to fix that necessarily.
if our kids are spending 7-8 hours a day at school, 32, 36 weeks out of the year, there is time to teach these kids to read. And that has to become the statewide priority.
Yeah.
I hate to go back to this because I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. My kids started overseas.
I was in overseas schools.
Right. But no, in actual German schools.
Oh, gotcha.
Not DOTS, not Department of Defense. These were actual German. And so they went to school from 8 to noon.
Okay.
4 hours a day. That's all they did.
Right.
And I remember going to the kindergarten teachers. I'll never forget this. I mean, I can see her face clearly before me because my kids come home. Oh, look what we did. We drew this. We did this. We colored this. And we're in kindergarten.
Okay.
And we're talking like 3 months before first grade. And I said, I've got to see this kindergarten teacher, and I go, hey, when are these kids going to start learning to read or learn some math? And she looked at me and she started laughing. She says, like, what's wrong with you? We don't do that here. We don't do that till the first grade. And then she starts hitting me with this word, pedagogy.
Oh gosh.
Right.
That's a big word. What does it mean? I don't know.
It's
pedagogy is sort of the
science
of education, the discipline of education, the worldview of here's how we handle it.
I'm a professional. You're just a parent.
Right. Well, no, but okay. So she tells me this. I said, don't worry about it when they get to first grade. So they go to first grade. Within 6 weeks, they were reading. And I mean, reading proficiently.
Good.
And because they said the way the brain develops, see the colors that way, when you show red, you show the color red and RED, that's red. And the R's and then they start drawing the letters and they put the letters together and boom. And it's like a building block thing. But I was blown away because I was thinking this is going to be a disaster, 6 weeks, the kids are reading. You give them a book and they're reading. We came to America and how I don't know if you did this. My wife and I, we would spell in front of our kids because you didn't want to.
Of course, what parent doesn't?
Right. And so I'll never forget this. Our daughter, she was like,
gotta have secret communication for as long as possible.
Yeah. So we're there spelling in front of our 6-year-old and we're looking at it and she's going,
she gets it fast. Yeah.
She's figuring and she's putting words to it as we're going down. She's reading street signs and starting to sound out these street signs. So it taught me that I think we put so much into this early childhood education and stuff where we're missing the focus of early childhood education. It's the type of education they're getting.
Well, education departments, as Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about, and he's brilliant, of course, is they got stupid in our universities a long time before the universities got stupid because all these education departments in our colleges across America started going down this track of self-esteem and how do they feel about stuff. And then we eventually, went into social emotional learning and they started adopting all these kind of crazy emphasis instead of reading, math, and civics basics.
Okay, so magic wand.
That was number one.
Yes,
I still get a second, or I still get two other.
Oh yes.
Right?
Move us along.
Magic wand, Number two is we do want to fundamentally transform the tax code.
Okay.
With an actual strategy to become a no income tax state because we've got this huge competitive disadvantage against or versus the no income tax states. Tennessee is a good comparison versus Oklahoma when you consider basic, landlocked, population size, that sort of thing.
Nevada.
And Nevada in some cases as well. But job and population growth is 10, 20, 30% bigger than what we have in the no income tax states versus what we have in Oklahoma. And we've wasted some of our opportunities to get there faster because of hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone to insane, wasteful green energy projects. I'm the guy that killed the $1 billion boondoggle wind power tax credit that cost taxpayers $1.5 billion for a whopping, 400 jobs. We killed it, fortunately, in 2017, but we must transform the tax code to be competitive in the 21st century.
I remember that the big argument that year was we're paying a windmill more than the base pay for a school teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Just for sitting there. It was just brilliant.
Think of all this money that we could have paid teachers, or we could have put into roads, or we could have hired more cops, and we could have cut taxes.
Yeah. Okay, you talked to Skylar Cooper at KRMG this week. I listened to some of it, and you mentioned, he says, we got to quit punishing productivity. I think there's something to that effect.
Don't tax labor.
Okay.
Don't tax work.
Without naming names, I talked to a couple of my friends who are with Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. They suggest replacing it with taxes on services. I got pretty worked up over that because when I bill a customer for my work as a contractor, not only am I paying income tax on that hour that I billed, but now a sales tax on top of it. And it's not just me, it's your doctor, your plumber, your lawyers, everything else. We're going to raise medical costs just to go see your doctor. These are the concerns I have. So please tell me, are you looking at expanding sales tax in order to cover for this?
Well, before you get too worked up, Dave.
Okay. I'm worked up.
Let's talk economics a little bit. You don't want to you don't want to tax work and the labor that we all put into economy, because anytime you tax something, you sort of limit its effectiveness. Now, what you do want to tax generally is activity. If you tax Dave's work, you're literally taking away from his freedom. But if you tax activity, a la a sales tax, you're now leaving it up to Dave in terms of, well, I get to choose from a freedom perspective when I buy this or I do this or I do that. So there's way more freedom on the activity side from an individual choice than it is on the work side. Now, having said that, the first simple thing that needs to happen before we start debating which services might, be taxable and which services might not be taxable, what we need to do is clean up the basic tax code and bring rates down. Senator Dave Rader likes to talk about, if you look at all the tax deductions, tax rebates, tax credits, and you look at everybody's after tax impact from all that stuff, the current tax rate is 4.75% in Oklahoma. But what do you think your average effective tax rate is after you plug in your standard deduction and after you plug in your personal exemption and all that stuff? What do you think the average tax rate is that people actually pay?
Are you talking state or federal?
Just state effective tax rate.
I'm just going to give up and you tell me.
3.1%.
Okay.
So would you rather have a standard deduction that saves you some taxes and a personal exemption that saves you some taxes? We just like to wipe all that stuff out because the net result's the same and bring down the tax rate. For example, if you took out the standard deduction and we all just didn't claim that standard deduction,
Come up to the microphone, please.
we all claim that standard deduction, but instead of paying 4.75%, I don't know the exact carry crossover number here, but then you'd only have to pay 4.25%. The effect is the same. So it's like we're giving ourselves all these breaks when, well, let's just move these breaks out and reduce the tax rate, because what people out there in the world of comparing different states, they don't think through the deductions and this and, oh, well, in Oklahoma, you pay an effective tax rate of 3.1%. No, you pay 4.75%, and over there in Tennessee, you pay zero. So there's some really easy stuff. We just wipe out $1.6 billion of all these tax credits and tax deductions.
Yeah, but
we can lower the rate to 3.25%.
I understand, but the reality, even if you get rid of state income tax and replace it with a tax on services, it's not 4 point something percent, because every community then is allowed to, and for most people, it's going to be around 9%.
No. And I have done the modeling in terms of if we became like a no income tax state like Tennessee, if one, we just wipe out the silly stuff that forces us to have a larger income tax rate. And then two, we wipe out some sales tax exemptions that they don't do in other states. You guys are sports fans, right? Do you like the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Yeah.
Do you like going to football games? Well, when you go to an NBA game in Tennessee or Texas, you actually pay a sales tax. Now, in Oklahoma, you don't pay a sales tax when you buy tickets to a Thunder game because we exempted it. Because that was sort of, we got to exempt it.
Yeah, I remember. I was so disgusted with the legislature doing that.
And it's...
Well, to get them here. That was a problem.
I know, and I have a problem with paying for companies and franchises to move here.
So would anybody stop going to the Thunder games if they had to pay a sales tax on the tickets? No.
Right. Yeah, I get
so if
that.
you wipe out all that stuff that we don't need, hold on. Now you get to about 2.5%, and we've got the better tax rate in the region minus Texas, and we're equal to what Arizona has at 2.5. And then maybe you start debating, well, in Florida and Tennessee and Texas, they do tax some services. And what services make sense to tax? And would we rather tax some services instead of taxing our work? And, you know, in some of these states, you guys have pets?
We did.
You do? Okay.
They have a pet tax?
No. In some states, a service is grooming, getting your dog groomed.
Right.
So would you rather pay a little tax on getting your dog groomed like they do in other states and not have to pay an income tax?
Right. But what I'm saying here is
people would scream because it's unfair to people.
That would be a difficult debate that the legislature would have to get all the way to a no income tax state like other states. But there's so much that we need to do before that, Dave, that we really don't want to get lost in that conversation.
Right. Yeah. Because honestly, if you think about it, the real issue is not so much how we tax or what percentage we tax at. It's how much we tax and why. Yeah. In other words, can we reduce our state budget?
There you go. Yeah, we can agree there.
That's what I'm talking about. So the real issue is reducing the state budget to the point and bringing in other revenue to where we do not need to tax the individuals.
In the first year of a Mazzei administration, we want to look at reducing spending, and we've got an initial plan that can save recurring expenses $750 million. That allows us to take the rate from 4.75 to 4 or 4.25.
Yeah.
Then if we marry that with some tax reform, like we discussed on these deductions, credits, rebates, exemptions, We could also lower the rate another half a point, another 3/4. So now, Dave, we're getting from 4.75 to 3.5 to 3.75 by reducing spending and doing tax reform. And we haven't even had to talk about services.
All right, one more thing. I'm sorry. Let me one more.
Okay.
Why? Because you know,
cut me up twice.
I'm like
now.
I'm like Al Pacino in Dick Tracy. It'll be there and gone.
I know. What I have to say is from 5 minutes ago.
See, it's almost yeah. You have a better retention. See, I think I've already lost.
I still want my magic wand for item number 3.
Yeah. It's still. We got plenty of time. We saved the time. But honestly, I think it is gone now.
Okay, it'll come back to you because Eddie, I was driving over to your house this week to do some work for you that you needed some help on.
That you're going to give me a bill for this.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. And I'm listening to Skyler on KRMG in his recorded conversation with you, and you talked about we got to quit taxing productivity.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm thinking here, if Eddie hires me as an employee, then I won't have income tax in your magic wand world. But if I'm an independent contractor, now I get slapped with currently Tulsa's 8.51% sales tax on my hour of work. It's the same work.
I don't mean to be too harsh, Dave, but you've gone off the deep end.
Okay.
Because in Texas, in Tennessee, in Florida, where they don't have an income tax state, or they don't have an income tax, and people are flocking to
I got
states.
it. I just wanted you to see it from my
picture. They're not charging a service tax for an independent contractor to go do some work.
Okay, see, now that helps me understand the context. Thank you for saying that. You just clarified a lot. Good. Magic wand number 3.
Wait, no.
You remember.
Yeah, it came. It was like a boomerang.
Catch it.
No, it was okay. So we've done the reduction in the state tax. How do we deal with our local community? So, for example, there's no grocery tax statewide, yet the cities haven't given up. They haven't relinquished. Now, are there cities in Oklahoma that have decided to go along with the state and said, we give up our city tax?
On groceries?
On groceries.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So, and the state has no authority over municipalities, I assume. That's the way the state law.
No, I think we had to carve out that language to allow them to continue.
To get it to pass. Is that what
I think so?
The state grocery legislation specifically addressed the 4.5% state sales tax on groceries, food items. It did not address what the counties and or the cities charge on sales taxes for groceries. That was left to those government.
Okay.
Yeah, because the broader statutory language is if the state charges a sales tax, then the municipalities can. If it's excise tax like gasoline, they can't do a sales tax on gasoline. For instance, that's just the example. But I remember when they were fighting this thing a couple of years ago, they had the municipal league. They're a powerful lobby. You know that. And that was their big thing is there's so many municipal government budgets. They're so dependent on that grocery store.
In Oklahoma, compared to other states where there's some tax receipts from different types of items. In Oklahoma, the cities only have one tax collection stream, and it's from sales taxes.
Right.
They don't have any property tax stuff. They don't have any, fortunately, they don't have any income tax stuff, but sales taxes is all our cities have to operate on. So they did not want to be part of the grocery
property
tax
taxes are
relief.
county, right? That's why
except for that public safety zone that J.D. Nolan got passed a few years ago.
Well, that's only if a local city, Dave, goes to the voters and says, do you want to have
Property
property taxes for public safety dollars.
Yeah.
And I don't know of a municipality that's ever actually implemented that.
So
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why. See, that explains something then. Why county government tends to have more money. Opening those
More stable budget.
maybe stable, but yeah, than the cities do.
Counties can have both sales tax receipts and property tax receipts.
Right. I've got you. Okay, Dave.
Yeah.
Magic wand number
3.
We have got to make our community safer in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, even here in red state conservative Oklahoma, we fell prey to some of these silly liberal laws where a few years back, we made it a misdemeanor for retail theft. And so as a result, you've got these thugs as a part of various gangs that go into a retail shop where my oldest daughter has often worked, and they walk out with bags of stolen goods.
They're doing it here in Oklahoma?
Oh, they're doing it here in Tulsa. It happens every day.
Quick Trip is told, do not try to stop them.
And our friend Vic, Sheriff Vic Regalado, they actually confiscated a container for an 18-wheeler, and it had $5 million worth of stolen merchandise that had been collected by this, various gang folks, and it was going to be shipped off to, the East Coast where they just sell the stolen goods on the black market.
So how do you fight that?
Well, we have to basically make any type of retail theft above $10 a felony.
Right.
So, there's a reason, when cops are aware of this, they'll actually arrest the person and know that this person is going to pay some stiff penalties or some jail time. But, if criminals know all I'm going to get is a misdemeanor, if I get, caught and, cops know, well, there's not going to be no repercussions. So why should we put any time attention into that? And there's another problem. Let me come back to one other deal that's really terrible in the rural areas.
It was $500. The language is 780, state question 780, wanted to bump it to 1,000. The legislature beat them to it and raised it to 1,000, kind of like about the last year you were there. And but
2 years
my thinking is similar to you, Mike, except you might make it like second offense bumps to felony or something like that, rather than the $10 is a felony.
Well, I don't think it's fair, Dave. I think the threshold should be super low because the legislature did lower it back to 500 last year or the year before.
Okay, thank you for updating me.
No impact. They're still walking out of these. They go in. If you have 50, thugs across the city in one day, and they all take $100 of stolen merchandise out, then they're pooling it and they're ripping off our small business owners.
But I do want to say
we've got Trump wouldn't stand for, let's be easy on these folks that are ripping our small business owners off. It's time to get tough again.
That's the thing I want to get at is for a business owner. And I mean, I haven't not heard it disputed. Somebody called in and KMG said, Quick Trip doesn't even prosecute. They don't even do a police report.
Oh, my daughter has seen this at PetSmart and Ross Dress for Less.
But now think like a retailer here. Why do I want all this mess? Nothing's going to. We've got to find a better way for retailers to partner with law enforcement to help take this out.
Agreed.
And I don't know what that is, but I think that's part of the issue.
Well, we obviously need, more deputy sheriffs, more police officers, more troopers. That's a priority from a financial standpoint and how we want to reset the priorities of the state when it comes to the overall state budget. But, cops aren't going to arrest somebody they've only got so much time. They've only got so much manpower. They're not going to spend their time and their booking and driving somebody down for a misdemeanor on retail theft that's hurting our small business owners when, it's never going to lead to any consequences.
Mhm.
And the criminals know this, so they've worked out their schemes to just steal stuff every day.
Yeah, I agree with you. Law
It's
enforcement,
ridiculous.
public safety, because it's costing all of us.
Now,
It's
the
part of
other-
those rising prices.
The other terrible thing that's happened in terms of following these, crazy liberal ideas that have swept across the country, thanks to the radical, leftists, is here in Oklahoma, in our rural areas, we've got these Chinese that, are more than likely
Marijuana
communists, and they're buying up large tracts of our treasured Oklahoma land for these huge marijuana, grow operations. And the friends, the clients, the Republicans, the Democrats that, own land in our rural areas keep telling us, as I crisscross the state, that there is criminal activity that's happening alongside these marijuana grow farms. And in spite of this fancy legislation that was passed last year at the Capitol, and all the politicians, or some of the politicians, would sort of wave the victory salute. Hey, we passed this law that says foreign, bad actors can't buy land in Oklahoma. Well, the special interest crowd made the loophole so broad that nothing has happened. And I literally was helped by an anonymous clerk in one of our Oklahoma counties that showed me the affidavit that goes along with the buying process of farmland. And there's these boxes, and you can check one box that says I'm a legal resident. So the affidavit gets compiled with the transfer of the deed. But there's this other box, Eddie, that says, well, I intend to become a legal resident.
God. Oh.
And so we've got to chase out these, Chinese that have bought up Oklahoma land, and we've got to make it untenable for foreign bad actors to buy land in Oklahoma. And that's what is necessary to make our community safer.
I have to tell you, I worked with Chip Paul, the author of 788, on behalf of veterans with mental health crises and the promise of what cannabis medicines can do. I got very involved in it. I was severely disappointed with the OMMA and, in general, the legislature dragging their feet on enforcement. The laws were there. The problem is there because of a failure to enforce.
Yeah.
And it was making tons of money for the state, but we weren't spending the money on enforcement. And I think we're 6 years behind right now.
Yeah, they've, our friend Adria Berry at the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Association,
OMMA.
They've done lots of yeoman's work to clean things up in terms of the registration requirements, and some oversight and some accountability. And they've increased the costs a little bit in terms of the licensing, but the regulatory approach, the legislative approach has not done enough.
Right.
Because we've got 300,000 folks apparently in this state that have medical marijuana licenses, and we're producing tons and tons more of marijuana that is necessary for our Oklahoma people. And that's why the Chinese own this land, and they're shipping it out all across the country.
Right.
And we've
it
got
is cover for criminal activity.
And, my concern is we're not doing enough, because we like the $60 million or so that's, coming in from tax receipts for the state. And, the cities like the $50 or $60 million that's coming in for, sales tax collections at these cannabis shops. But that's not worth the poison that we're creating for our kids. And it's certainly not worth giving away our Oklahoma farmland to Chinese communists.
Yeah, it's a real issue. Real issue. That's 3 magic wand swings.
Is that 3 or 4?
Those are some very, very important priorities for a future Mazzei administration.
And so Other than that, the campaign, how's it been going? Other than, I know you had your launch. How's your team looking?
Oh, we're very excited about our team of managers, deputies, team leaders for various groups like teachers and military members and veterans. Our staff is just top notch. Some of the best, strategists and analysts in the Midwest, in the country. I couldn't be more enthused about this wonderful organization that's coming together, Eddie. As you know, my father, former colonel, in the military, likes to be heavily involved, and he doesn't really care if I get tired. So he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And have you thought about this? And then you're doing this.
He calls me all the time.
Yeah, we are going to have the biggest statewide grassroots organization Oklahomans have seen since the days of Jim Inhofe. Wow. And we want to carry out this message that Oklahoma's destiny is to be a land of growth and prosperity, where Judeo-Christian values are treasured and families can feel super confident about raising their kids and getting a life that is filled with goodness and fellowship with other Oklahomans.
How many candidates have officially declared right now?
Official registered candidates with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission, I believe right now the number is 4. Myself included in that 4.
Do you know who they are, or can you mention who they are?
Tell us, give free advertising to your opponents.
I just
Gantner and Charles.
Wait, we know about Gantner, Drummond.
Term limited state representative Charles McCall.
Yeah.
We and then there's a lady. I apologize, I can't remember her name. But, we like to emphasize that at the moment, I am the only lifelong, true reform-minded, conservative Republican. And
you can check out. Absolutely.
You can check out the political registration history and the donation history of some of those other folks in the race.
That's a good point.
Yeah, one of those.
I'll let you guys work on that.
I don't know much about Charles McCall, but someone else that's been mentioned has, to me, some questions.
Well, I'll just tell people, get ready. A couple of those guys, Mike, I know you don't live a flamboyant, multi-million-dollar yacht lifestyle, private jet like some of the other guys.
I had to get 5 kids through college.
Right. But yeah, that's the thing. I think there's a couple of them that are going to throw millions of their own money into this race. Yeah. And I'm getting a big bowl of popcorn this time. And I know some of their handlers, or at least people who have run their past campaigns, and it's not going to be all roses, hot dogs, and apple pie. Mm-mm. They have a tendency to really throw it around. So now, Mike, you remember, I don't know if I think you were in town when Turnbull and Chuck Richardson were running for AG. Mm-hmm. They beat themselves up so bad that Tim Harris won.
I remember that.
Yeah. So those dynamics can come to play. They can beat each other up so bad, they'll move you up in the polls. Well, unless you start beating people up, I don't know.
I'm a small business owner for 28, 29 years. We like to focus on how to have collaborative consensus, brainstorming, get people excited about the vision, be purposeful and diligent, Dave, about these are the strategies that work. Mm-hmm. And it means we have to challenge the status quo and the establishment. And if we work on these fixes, I like to remind folks very specifically that true reform-minded conservatives fix things. Yeah. When I was in the state Senate, we had this massive transformational effort on pensions and workers' compensation and lawsuit reform and state roads and bridges. And we just did one major transformation after another. And when true reform-minded conservatives get together to fix things, we can make Oklahoma a world-class destination state.
Okay. Can I clean up one thing? And this, because I'm in agreement with you on the income tax thing. You remember when the Oklahoma City Thunder were in the finals NBA championship? They ran into the Miami Heat and won Mr. LeBron James.
Yeah, Durant and Westbrook and James Harden.
Great all-star team.
Fun year.
But here's the thing. Years earlier, LeBron started out in Cleveland. I think he grew up in that area. And he was free agent. I think it was New York Knicks wanted him and Miami Heat. And Rush Limbaugh said he will end up at Miami.
No income tax state.
There you go. That's exactly what Rush Limbaugh said. When you're looking at, however many tens of millions of dollars, all of a sudden, Florida had an advantage over New York where you're paying city taxes on top of all that.
Why do you think Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers for a couple of years?
Exactly. So, folks, if you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, you might like his tax code because you might end up having a championship out of it.
Let's keep those young stars here for the next 10 years.
I'll send you my bill, Mike.
And draw some more.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel we haven't covered or that you'd like to say? Actually, you know what we usually do? When we have candidates, we like them to speak right into the camera and just make your closing argument of why you should be the guy.
Thanks so much for having me, gentlemen. We would just love and appreciate you. Check out Mike Mazzei at mike4ok.com. That'll tell you more about us, give you a little bit of my history. But most importantly, we love Oklahoma. We believe that it's a very, very special place. Oklahoma's 30 plus years ago, Oklahoma, as much as it's a state in America, and if true conservatives or when true conservatives, get together, we can all, I think, agree that there's no place like Oklahoma. I've been all over the country, all over the world, and there's just no place like Oklahoma, none. But together, true reform-minded conservatives can choose freedom and faith, and together we can make a better tomorrow for our kids and our grandkids. And so we'd love to have your help and support. We'd really appreciate your vote when the time comes. And check us out and join our team, and we'll find a way to spend some time with you.
And where can they find you on the internet?
Internet is mike4ok.com.
And social media as well. I'm sure they'll find
There's a Mike Mazzei for Governor Facebook page now.
And you want to spell Mazzei, by the way? That might help people.
Well, that's why the website is just Mike
for OK.
Mike4ok.com. But my last name is Mazzei. M, A is in Alpha, Z is in Zebra, another Z, E is in Echo, and I is in Ice. So
lately, you've been very accessible at last few years at state Republican conventions. We have a state convention coming up.
I'll be there.
You got a table there?
2nd, got a table.
Because,
got a booth.
Folks, this guy wants to build a grassroots team. And there's going to be a couple thousand people, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to start recruiting in all the counties.
I'll be there and shake as many hands as I can. I went to the Tulsa County Republican Convention.
Yes.
And shook a couple hundred hands. And I went to the Oklahoma County Republican Convention and shook a couple hundred hands. We've got a phone effort that's starting to try to talk to all the GOP faithful over the next several months. So you might even get a phone call from me.
I have.
Yeah. And if you want to, one thing you can do too, if you know people on the other side of the state, top of the state, bottom of the state, all over the state, feel free to share this.
Yeah, we'll be
interview.
getting to all 77 counties. We've already been to 15 or 20.
Yeah. So just feel free to share this over the internet, email, however you want to do it, and invite people to see it and look Mike up. And we thank you all for
Thanks
it,
so
Mike.
much for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Fun.
We
We'll
thank you
take a
for
break.
taking the time for us, and we'll take a break right here, right now.
All right.